after the coffee break. David, good morning again.
Morning.
And thank you so much for joining. It's 6:30 a.m. From where he's connecting. Sorry, am I fine? Great. So from where he is joining. So thank you, David, for joining us. Anant, would you mind taking a seat so we can begin the session, please? Harsh, please. अमित आपकी चेयर आपकी राह देख रही है आइए So Mr. David Bouffard is an industry veteran of 45 years. He's, of course, in the US and very unusual career, if I may say so, that he has worked with one organization almost his entire career, which is just tremendous, with Signet. So he started in sales, I guess, when they were independent, and then that company was acquired, etc. His history is and his experience is extremely interesting. And I met David, I think some 15, 20, more than 20 years ago, when we were trying to do the Responsible Jewelry Council. And I was at that time with Rio Tinto Diamonds. And I had done the business excellence model, and we were trying to figure out about our learnings and how best can we take this forward to create the framework for Responsible Jewelry Council. His interest has always been in the greater good of the industry and not just the numbers. He, of course, gave up his full-time role, retired as the vice president of Signet early this year. And now he has his own consultancy. He has been made significant contribution to the industry trade bodies like World Diamond Council, Kimberley Process, and of course he was 2 terms chair for the Responsible Jewelry Council. We have been talking about, we heard from Amit about De Beers, what they do. During the day, we have in between touched and has had conversations about natural diamond, lab-grown diamond, role of the US, and US is such an important market. And I think many of us, most of us are interested in the US market, whether we are selling loose or we are selling jewelry. It's say almost half of the global jewelry market, and hence US is the key important market for all of us here. And how has that market evolved? That's very important for us to understand what next. And also with the changes in the what is happening at the mining level, De Beers, what it used to do, what it doesn't do. We have heard from Amit as well, the kind of work that they are doing now. So David, with his experience and what he has understood about the market, is going to share with us how he sees future and how we may really work towards building our future. So David, thank you again for joining. Please let's have your presentation. We have about 30, 35 minutes, and I would like to leave some time for question answers.
That's great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is my sound okay?
Yes, you're perfect. Fine. Thanks.
That's great. First, I'd like to begin by thanking you personally for this invitation. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity to speak to especially the Indian community. And I thank you and the entire team for all your help in the preparation. Very quickly, before I move on here, I chose this image because today we're going to be talking about North America, the US specifically, when we talk about the globe and the international roles that India plays, of course, in the jewelry market. And okay, and I would also like to thank all the other presenters. It really is quite an esteemed group, and I'm very, very proud to be part of this team. today. So thank you all. And I deeply regret my online presentation. I'd much rather be there in person, and look forward to my next trip to India when I can be there. My contact information is here. I'll also provide it at the end. And you can simply click on that QR code. And so why don't we go ahead and get underway? I want to begin with why I'm here. And I really, I've been, as Nirupa said, I've known her for more than 20 years. And I've been coming to India for about 15 years, and dozens and dozens and dozens of time. And what I've learned is to really fall in love with the people. I've been all over Mumbai. I've been all over Surat, Ahmedabad, and I've seen the industry with Indian eyes for the last 15 years, and I want to help, and that's why I'm here today. I want to help. I know you've heard a lot today from other presenters about the state of the industry. What I really want to talk about is what we can do about it. When I say we, I'm putting myself in the audience with you today. And also, what's important, I think, is in today's world, the importance of the growing employment of women in our supply chain. And I know it's happening. I've seen it grow. And it's something, again, that I think is important. I know it's important to India, but it's also important to the US and North American market. So I've also got that in mind when we talk about what we can do together to help the Indian market grow, and by doing so, by helping the US and North American market to grow. So I'm going to share a story with you. That's my dear friend Kinjal Shah in front with the sunglasses. And this was taken about, I don't know, 8 years ago. And we were up in Surat, and it was not my first visit, and I had been there a number of times. And I didn't know he took this picture, but I'm standing there and I'm a little despondent, because what I had just seen, we had just come from a diamond cutting factory a row of shops that were essentially diamond cutting and providing hundreds and hundreds of jobs for our Indian colleagues, largely cutting Melly, for example. And we had just come back from one of the shops, and it wasn't there anymore. And what I saw instead was an embroidery machine, a big, gigantic embroidery machine that had taken over the entire space where more than 100 Indian diamond cutters used to work. And I said to myself, what happened to them? What happened to them? They've been replaced by a big machine in another industry with one person operating it. That's what was on my mind when Kinjal took this picture randomly. And that stayed with me all these years. And again, why I'm here today. We read articles such as you see on the bottom here: decade low revenues, demand slump. And of course, what that means is employment is down in India. And again, that's why I'm here. I want to help. We see more doom and gloom. I'm sure other presenters showed this kind of slide that shows the diamond prices falling, even though efforts are in place to show that that efforts are around natural diamonds, but we still have synthetic diamonds and lab-grown diamonds, and we'll talk a bit about that. That's adding, as we all know, adding to this decline we see in the diamond prices. I watched a podcast, and I hope Sachin Chokshi doesn't mind. But when I was watching the podcast, it was great. And what I walked away from that podcast was when I took the video when he said these lines, that somebody has to take the lead. And I firmly believe it is you who must take the lead. And that's what we're going to talk about. How can India take the lead and improve and grow its employment by growing the Indian market, by growing the US North American market in sales, and in particular, natural diamonds, synthetics, lab grown as well, but the focus on natural diamonds. And that's what I'd like to speak with you about today. And again, I believe I can help and I want to help. So what we'll talk about is what we're going to talk about is how Indian companies can achieve greater success in sustainable growth, how they can compete and win. We've got a highly fragmented market. I think that's really important to stress. It's always been fragmented. I did work at Signet for more than 4 decades. And even as big as Signet is, it's important to remember its market share is less than 10%. So today's presentation is really about the other 90%. That's where I want to focus today. And that's where I want to work with you on the other 90%, in particular in the US and North American markets. And especially with digital and e-commerce and websites, that this market is going to continue to become more and more fragmented. And that's just an assumption we have to make as we go through today. We're going to talk about the importance of sustainable development and how to get messaging to consumers. This is really what they want to hear from you to help drive demand. We'll talk about the new supplier of choice. I believe that new supplier of choice is you. And what is industry stewardship? And that's for large and small to medium enterprises, SMEs. We've got some table stakes that we have to think about. The Responsible Jewelry Council, as Nirupa mentioned, OECD-based due diligence programs like a Signet SRSP, very important. And then, as Nirupa says, we'll have time for questions and answers. So these corporate compliance today are these are the table stakes in the US and North America. We have a ban, as you all know, from the G7 on Russian diamonds. We've got banking and finance strategies across the global supply chain that need to be addressed. And I think our work together can help improve the situation. We've got RJC membership and audit requirements that are really important to the entire industry. And using OECD-based due diligence practices, we'll talk about those in a moment. And then how we can talk about these global entry strategies into the North American market. So what is industry stewardship? It is really about, I believe, the Indian market taking over the role of, in particular, 2 companies. I've always talked about the bookends of the industry. We have De Beers over here with its great marketing efforts over the years. And we have Signet over here with its great marketing efforts as well. So we've got a push and a pull.
Amit and Anant here as well said that this is a responsibility of all of us, and we should not just depend on the one end of the segment, which is minor, to really push or promote, create awareness. How many of us here believe that this is our responsibility as well? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe about 10 of us. The rest of us don't think it's our responsibility. Am I right? If we say it is our responsibility, those or maybe the others are still thinking about it. What is it that you all think we should be doing? Ramanik bhai, what do you think we should do when we say that we also have to play a part? Any thoughts?
So it is a joint responsibility of all the people to promote the trade, because a single-handed nobody can succeed. Yeah, because if all voices go together and there is a discussion and understanding between all of us, it can help much for the benefit of our business.
But that also means is bring in money, because just bring in efforts, we have to have all kinds of resources, which is money. So are we all as diamond players, diamond chairs, jewelry manufacturers, how many of us think we will be willing and we will? Are you ready, David?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Give me just 1 second. We will take it up later. How many of us are really willing to put and contribute to make this, do this promotion? Thank you. Sorry, David, please continue.
Quite all right. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to collect myself. I appreciate it very much. But that question is a good one, Nirupa. And I'm going to talk about why the people in the room it's really incumbent upon them and us to drive demand. Nobody else is going to do it. So we talk about this, the new supply chain management, the way it should be. Also, okay,
Are you all right there? We'll continue.
my, I don't know why my slide won't change now. Okay, sorry. Also, the way it is, this is really now getting into the meat of my talk today. You know, I was really proud to see so many of my friends and my companies that I've worked with over the years receive the Jewelry World Awards. And it's great. It's great for us. This is all new. It's the next generation coming in. And it's wonderful to see us celebrating the work that we do together in India, again, in particular. However, until that work is shared with consumers, we're really talking to ourselves. We have to bring that work, the great work that's being done and celebrated here, to consumers. And companies here are doing it. And many of you know these companies, they're global companies. India is a global industry. And we have to find a way together to tell the great story of the work that companies, the Indian companies, Indian diamond cutting manufacturers, jewelry manufacturing, gold manufacturing, are taking, the great steps that you're taking for the people. And really what it will help drive in our industry is trust. Okay. And it's a fundamental, I think it's unique to our industry where trust is the fundamental tenet to how consumers look at diamond jewelry in particular. And there's two audiences, really. It's employees who trust the company they work for. I know that if you're a certified RJC member, for example, employees feel a lot better working in that company, in that factory in India, whether it's in Mumbai or Surat. They're more motivated to work. They've got lower rates of absenteeism, and they're less likely to look for another job. And in the US in particular, the customers are trusting. They're more likely to choose a brand over competitors, buy it again, and promote it. But they've got to hear the sustainability stories. So where do we want to focus? It's really about telling what customers care about, which is sustainability. So for example, 78% of consumers claims a sustainable lifestyle is important to them. Well, the sustainable lifestyle is really are considered a way of living and social behavior and choices that minimize environmental degradation while supporting equitable socioeconomic development and a better quality of life for all. And I know that your companies are doing that. 30% of consumers are more likely to purchase sustainably focused products. And we have a study here in the US that shows 95% of US customers at least sometimes behave in ways that make purchases that with companies that protect the planet. And that's really important. It's table stakes today. And if they don't see this message in our category, we're left out in the views of today's customers. Sustainability is a critical differentiator. It's not a primary purchasing driver. It's much like the Responsible Jewelry Council. It's an expectation today. Customers expect that the companies that they're working for are upholding human rights, for example, factory conditions, worker care, etc. And they help drive sustainability. These sustainability related factors help drive purchasing decisions, and they're really focused around environmental and people. So right now, what our opportunity is to define sustainability. It's not clear in the consumer's mind. If you ask each individual, they'll give you a different answer about what sustainability is. So it's our opportunity to define it for them. And they don't really understand terms. We use terms like circular economy and regenerative agriculture and carbon neutral. And that's investor talk. That's not consumer talk. We've got to find a way to translate, again, the great work that you're doing and give it to the consumer with real life, authentic examples of what sustainability means in our industry. The younger generations understand sustainability different. And they, again, are looking at it from a people perspective, a product perspective, and a planet perspective. We looked at it, my generation looks at sustainability as, for example, recycling. Well, recycling has always been part of industry. Diamonds are never thrown away. Gold is never thrown away. Platinum's never thrown away. Everything we use is recycled. So it's an inherent fundamental bit of our industry culture that, again, needs to be told. And at the same time, we know that consumers are skeptical. 70% of consumers are wary of corporate sustainability commitments and claims. They worry about greenwashing, and they fear that the commitments made are just a ruse to sell more products. So we have to evidence that information. We have to give them more information. Then lastly, 85% claim sustainability certifications are important when purchasing a product. Again, that can be done through the RJC, that can be done through an SRSP and other programs, and where companies are talking about the great work that they do for people, product, and planet. So when we talk about sustainable marketing, let's talk about that. Pardon me. I think it's important to note that sustainability and green are two different concepts. Going green means using environmentally friendly products and services, while sustainability means using products or services that in a way that does not damage the future generations' resources. And in the US, there's clear definition by the FTC about guidelines about how to promote sustainability versus green. And again, sustainability is about the longevity of the service or product. It's about being sustainable for the environment. This is what today's customer cares about. And then sustainable marketing involves showing your business's sustainable efforts. And that's how we have to work, I believe, to work together to tell your story. So we're going to talk about that in more detail in a moment. And this will give more public insight into your commitment to social and environmental impact. And then lastly, we believe a successful marketing strategy should have a clear and compelling story. And you've got them. I've been there so many times, dozens of trips I've made all over the country. And you have authentic stories about people, your efforts, how you take care of your employees, how you respect the environment. And those stories are great opportunities to get directly to consumers in the US. They care about those specific topics. So really what we're talking about is direct to consumer. And we've got, as Nirupa mentioned a moment ago, we've got the old days of push and pull with De Beers pushing and Signet pulling with great beacon programs and organizations like DPS, KP, RJC, and so many others. And it was always the role of Signet and other major retailers to pull that merchandising program through the supply chain, pull the marketing. There were always resources, there was category advertising, but we have to think about a world where we don't have that anymore. And that's the past. So today what we have is we've got, I believe, this self-inflicted undermining of the natural diamond market with synthetics, with lab-grown diamonds. And that's created consumer confusion. Combined with today's economic pressures, it's a detriment to our US industry. And of course, what it all means is the margins aren't there for you. And what I'd like to suggest is a way to get back to margins for the Indian companies, the Indian factories, by taking control. As Mr. Chakson said earlier, I believe it's up to you to do this, and you can do it. Nobody can live on low single-digit margins. So the US market, valued at about $73 billion, it continues to decline. It's anticipated that the compound annual growth is going to be about 4% between now and the end of this decade. There's greater growing disposable income. Online shopping is taking off. Celebrity influence is helping. Demand for fine jewelry is there. Technology, very important in terms of, again, how we use it in our consumer marketing. But as big as the US is, it's only about 21% of the global jewelry market. Yes, it's about 50% of the diamond market, but it's only about 21% of the jewelry market. How are we going to get those numbers up? By getting India's numbers up on exports. We look at the sale trends over the last few years. On the left, we see in 2022, the post-COVID, fantastic results for the industry. And then the next year, we come up against those numbers. And now we're kind of in a new normal. And we see that we've got some single-digit growth anticipated this year, which is great. This is total jewelry and watch sales. But here's the thing. I'm going to take a segue here because I'm for synthetic diamonds. I'm for natural diamonds, but I'm more for natural diamonds. And I'll tell you why. Let's say you own a pet store in the US. We have stores that will sell a puppy, a kitten, fish, all kinds of pets. And you're a young couple and you're about to get engaged and you're living together. You're not ready to get engaged. And you say, well, let's bring somebody else into our life, not a child, but let's bring a pet into our life. And that's a very common thing here in the US. And let's say you go to the pet store and you say, we're going to bring home a puppy. And you get to the pet store on the left, you're looking for the puppy, but what do you see? Imitations, substitutes. You see plush puppies. Or you want to get a puppy like on the right, but the store is trying to sell you plush puppies, a substitute. That's what's happening today in American jewelry stores across the country and perhaps around the world, where customers are coming into a jewelry store, they're looking for natural diamonds, yet they're being presented with substitutes that cannibalize the sales of natural diamonds. And that is something that we need to work on together to help clearly differentiate the role of lab-grown diamonds and the role of natural diamonds. But this is a good example of what an analogy for that is happening in the US. And I can assure you, pet stores aren't doing this. Let's say they're selling a puppy for $500. They're not saying, hey, don't buy this puppy for $500. Buy this plush animal for $50. They're not doing that. They would never do that. So my question is, why are we doing that? So this industry stewardship and sustainable development is what we can call together the new supplier of choice. And I believe it is you. We are not going to have a world in the US with De Beers and Signet driving demand. So what are we going to do about that? I believe that it's an opportunity for the Indian diamond and jewelry manufacturers to step in and take the lead in industry stewardship and actually skip a level in the value chain. Today, the upstream works with retailers. I believe the upstream needs to work with consumers and drive demand directly with consumers. And again, I'm talking about the 90%, the 10%, less than 10% that Signet has in the US. I'm talking about the other 90%. And that can be done with by being a full service provider of jewelry that customers actually want. And then giving you the opportunity to take control and set your own terms, not those of the retailers in the US. So telling your story about the people, about your efforts around the planet and what you're doing as you develop and manufacture product. That's what consumers want to hear about. That's the new push-pull. You pushing and the consumer pulling because they are attracted to that content. Let's leverage what we know today's consumer wants. They want to hear about what you're doing to protect the environment and what you're doing to protect your workers and grow your employment. You've got to be an RJC member. You've got to have an OECD-based program like an SRSP or BPP or Diamond Source Warranty. Those, again, coming back to some type of certification consumers are looking for, not overtly, not first. They just want to check and make sure there's something there that gives them that confidence about the product. And the way to start this is through conducting market research, developing differentiated merchandising program, and then clearly position natural and synthetic diamonds away from each other. So that's all about innovation. That's going to take an effort around innovation, proving reliability with retailers. Of course, the basics like on-time delivery, quality, and safety. And then flexibility and working on always on cost and customer service. In other words, these are things that today most retailers cannot do in the US. Again, not talking about Signet's 10%. I'm talking about the other 90% in the US. These are things that opportunities in areas where India can step in and lead. Here's a basic fundamental value chain analysis from Porter, but I would only look at the right-hand side and the bottom right-hand side as it talks about service and margin. This is where margin is. It's in services today. So how do we do this by instilling consumer confidence is by offering personalized support to the retailers in the US, working with them to get feedback, addressing concerns, customer concerns promptly, offering guarantees, providing value-added services, and highlighting social impact, all the work that you're doing in sustainable development, developing a strong brand over time. You know, we have names of programs, we have programs, assortments, but they aren't brands. That takes lots of time and lots of financial effort. And by providing transparency, it's a way to foster the community of direct to consumers here in the US. So as I close here now, what I'm talking again is this new supplier of choice. That's you. And that's all about services, and in particular customer service, and that's where the margins are. And what we're talking about is when you're providing product to a retailer, it isn't the old days of a line sheet looking at the cost of goods sold and labor, et cetera, right? Today, we have to think and we have to operate the way the big companies I showed you earlier do. General Motors in the US or Tata in India promote cars, automobiles. The local dealers are the ones where the action happens, where they're sold. That's the model. And India has the ability through social media in particular to drive that demand. And again, for most retailers in the US, having an agency like customer service representative for the products you're selling and the programs and assortments you're building in US jewelry stores require this kind of effort. Repair service centers for your product. We've all, for example, if I buy a shirt from my Brooks Brothers, my store, and I have a problem with that shirt, I go back, they give me a new one, and I walk out. There's no hassle. There's no, well, let me send it to the manufacturer. Let me give you a receipt for it and come back in 2 weeks. That's what customers are dealing with in our industry. And there's an opportunity to change that through warranties, working with repair centers, offering retailers the ability to replace and accept returns. Returns are, especially online, are upwards of 30%, right? And if we can make it seamless for the consumer, just like in other categories, that's a good model to continue to grow consumer confidence. Lastly, online training modules for your product. Retailers don't have this. Big companies do, but the retailers don't have it. Their buyers are putting jewelry in the stores, and the salespeople have no idea what the features and benefits are. So developing online training modules, testing, very important. Providing marketing collateral, very important. In-person training programs, critical. And of course, working together, generate social media and PR marketing to tell your story. And that's again around product, planet, and people. So Nirupa, I've gone through this kind of quickly so that we could get to an open discussion or questions or answers, which I'm happy to take. I hope that was helpful. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So we probably have time for just a couple of quick questions, 2 or 3. Anyone? So David, if I may, oh, sorry, you have a question, Subbu? Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Thanks, David, for that insightful presentation. Subbu here from the New Jeweler International Media. I'm the editor. I have one question. While we are talking about the US retailers pushing lab-grown diamond to the consumers, what is it that is required for them to push natural diamond jewelry? When the customer comes in, will NDC play a vital role in this in terms of certifying the retailers to sell only natural diamond jewelry? Is that possible?
That's a great question, and thanks for asking. I think NDC is very important and critical. We have to thank De Beers for that organization, but it's limited. Their reach is limited. I know they're working with India. It's fantastic, driving demand. Of course, they're working in the US, but they're only working with Signet on the push for natural diamonds. What about the other 90%? They're working with Chow Tai Fook in China, right? So NDC is important, but they can't do it themselves. Of course, as their name says, they're the Natural Diamond Council. So they're all about natural. Unfortunately, there are companies and organizations in the lab-grown diamond and the synthetic diamond world that are also doing already what we're talking about today. They're already going to consumers through digital, through Instagram, through social media, and talking up lab-grown diamonds. And that's the competition there's nobody answering that in the US. And when we go into a store, and as we've heard, for example, US bridal customers are coming back, right? They're at post-COVID, they're coming into the stores. Right now is an important time before Christmas and holiday. People getting engaged, coming into a store to buy a natural diamond. And what are they seeing? They're saying, don't buy this $5,000 diamond, buy this $1,500 diamond. Don't buy the natural, buy the synthetic. That doesn't make sense to me. I think synthetics have a role, but it needs to be segmented. There are markets, there are stores in the US that ought to be selling synthetics. We see that in Pandora, Swarovski, and other retailers. But we certainly don't see the French brands selling synthetic diamonds.
As a follow-up,
Thank you, David.
as a follow-up, if I can ask one question, David, is do you think the US retailers who did and who offered their customers the synthetic when they came into the stores to buy diamond, they didn't specify they wanted a synthetic diamond. Do you think these retailers are going back? Are they having difficulties? Are they happy with lab grown? What's happening in the US? With the
Well-
independents and also with the chains like Signet, the Blue Nice and the James Allen, they're all selling synthetics. What's really this reality?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. It's the reality is that, as I mentioned earlier, we've got consumer confusion. Most customers don't know about lab-grown diamonds or synthetics. They learn about it in the process they go through as they get ready or think about becoming engaged. And when they do that research online, and most of them, more than 3/4 of people start online before they ever go to the store, and suddenly they're learning about lab-grown diamonds. And right away, that's a substitute for natural. It's not a complement. It's not an add-on. It's not something that's going to grow sales. It's not driving incremental sales. It's cannibalizing sales. So while offering choice is important, and I believe in choice, having lab-grown diamonds in the bridal sector in particular is a complete undermining of the growth that we need in the US to drive increased exports in India. So positioning natural diamonds, even as a center stone, I love the idea of a natural diamond in the center surrounded by lab-grown melly. Great, there's a good example of how to use lab-grown with natural. But in bridal, research today shows that most consumers, most women, only want a natural diamond for bridal. And I think lab-grown has a great place for fashion, but not bridal. And right now, we're just coming off, as we've been talking about, post-COVID, couples coming in looking to get engaged. And all you have to do is look at the social media advertising of large retailers in the US. And it's a consistent flow of lab-grown diamonds instead of natural diamonds.
Thank you. Thank you for that, David. We thank you for joining us early in the morning. You have a great day and a great weekend ahead. I wish you were here with us, but do enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much. An applause for Mr. David Bouffard. Thank you.
Thank you again. All the best, everybody.
Thank you.
Can we take a moment here to appreciate the presence of GIA in the forum by calling them for an appreciation moment?
Sure, please go ahead. Appreciation is always good.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure for me to invite Mr. Apurva Deshinkar, if he is in the room. Mr. Apurva Deshinkar from GIA. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand. GIA